When we think of the golden age of hip-hop, names like Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Biggie, and Jay-Z always pop up. We remember the music, the energy, the legacy. But if you look behind that glory, there's another story running side by side. Some of rap's biggest stars kept getting handcuffed, dragged into courtrooms, and locked behind bars. Many of those legends we hold up today either spent time in prison or were constantly in and out of it. So here's the big question. Why did so many rappers in the 90s end up in jail? Now, it's easy to just say, oh, they made bad choices or they lived wild lifestyles. Sure, some of that is true. We're not going to pretend they were saints. But if you only stop there, you miss the bigger picture. There was a whole system at play, laws, politics, the music industry, and the streets themselves that pushed hip-hop into that cycle. And that's exactly what I'm going to break down in this video. We're going to go step by step, digging into why prison and hip-hop felt like they were glued together in the 90s. First, let's rewind. You can't understand the 90s without looking at what came before. Hip-hop was born in the 70s and matured through the 80s, in neighborhoods crushed by poverty, neglect, and one of the deadliest drug epidemics in US history. During the 80s, crack cocaine exploded across urban America, especially in Black and Latino communities. Crack was cheap, highly addictive, and it spread like wildfire. Whole neighborhoods turned into war zones almost overnight. But here's the thing, this wasn't just some random tragedy that happened. The government's war on drugs poured gasoline on the fire. Harsh laws like the infamous 100-to-1 sentencing rule, where just 5 grams of crack got you the same prison time as 500 grams of powder cocaine, punished black communities far more severely than white ones, since crack was more common in inner cities, while powder was used in wealthier suburbs. By the time the 90s hit, the prison population had exploded, and black men made up a huge share of it. And guess where a lot of rappers came from? Places like Compton, Brooklyn, Queens, or the Calliope projects in New Orleans, neighborhoods right at the heart of that storm. For kids growing up there, survival often meant hustling, selling drugs, joining gangs, or carrying a weapon just to stay alive. Take Tupac Shakur. He bounced between Baltimore and Oakland, surrounded by poverty, crime, and a government system that gave communities like his little to no support. Or Snoop Dogg, who grew up in Long Beach and was connected with the Crips before fame hit. These weren't just stage personas, this was real life. Hip-hop became their megaphone. It gave them a way to turn their stories into music, into something the world couldn't ignore. But here's the catch. When you rap about the streets, and you're still tied to the streets, the trouble doesn't just disappear. Fame doesn't erase your past, it magnifies it. That's why the 90s became this perfect storm. Rappers were blowing up, but they were still living with the same dangers they came from. Now let's talk about the music itself, gangsta rap. In the late 80s, n.w.a. dropped a bomb on hip-hop with songs like Straight Outta Compton and Fuck the Police. They weren't rapping about parties anymore. They were giving unfiltered reports of street life, gang culture, and police brutality. By the 90s, gangsta rap was hip-hop. Tupac, Snoop, Ice-T, Ice Cube, plus labels like Death Row and No Limit, all turned raw street narratives into mainstream hits. Gangsta rap hit because it felt real. Fans loved that authenticity, but for rappers, it created a dangerous pressure. To stay real, you couldn't just leave the street life behind after signing a record deal. If you claimed Crip or Blood ties in your lyrics, people expected that to be your actual life. The line between performance and reality blurred. Tupac is the perfect example. On one hand, he wrote songs like Keep Ya Head Up, full of empowerment and compassion. On the other hand, he got pulled deep into beefs, violence, and legal cases, landing in prison in 1995. This wasn't just about personal choices, though. The system itself was watching. By the 90s, hip-hop wasn't just music, it was being treated like a national threat. Politicians, police, and media painted it as dangerous, violent, and corrupting.
This is the latest issue of Billboard magazine, and if you look in the category of hot rap singles, and there are 50 of them, many of the titles suggest violence, sex, drug use, and profanity. In fact, I can't even say some of the names of the songs on television.
Think about N.w.a. in 1989. The FBI literally sent them a warning letter accusing them of inciting violence against cops. That moment set the tone for the next decade. Hip-hop was on law enforcement's radar. By the time the 90s were in full swing, rumors spread about special hip-hop police units in cities like New York, whose job was basically to monitor rappers and their crews. Whether those were official units or not, the results were real. Rappers lived under a microscope.
I have to remind America that all of these incidents with the rappers are just allegations. No one's been convicted yet.
One of the ugliest weapons used against them was their own lyrics. Imagine writing a fictional song about street life only for a prosecutor to use it in court as if it's a confession. That's exactly what happened. Mac Phipps, a no-limit rapper, was convicted of manslaughter in 2000, and prosecutors used his song Murda Murda Kill Kill against him.
You took two different songs, spliced them together to make what you feel, to basically make the statement you wanted to make. Murder, 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 kill, 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 kill. One song was Murder, Murder, Kill, Kill, which was like a straight battle rap. The other one was a song called Shell Shock, and the line that they referred to was actually a line about my father. They said, this young man said, murder, murder, kill, kill. If you F with me, I'll put a bullet in your brain.
And he wasn't alone. Over 500 cases in the past few decades have used rap lyrics as evidence, almost always against Black and Latino artists. In the 90s, when rap was public enemy #1, this tactic was everywhere. And don't forget the racial angle. Tough on crime policies like mandatory minimums and 3 strikes laws hammered Black communities in the 90s. Meanwhile, politicians like Bill Clinton and activists like Dolores Tucker publicly attacked rap music, calling it immoral and destructive. The media ran stories about violent rappers, feeding the idea that hip-hop itself was a threat to society. Put all that together, and you had a system ready to lock up rappers at the first opportunity. Now, let's zoom in on some rappers who became symbols of this era. Tupac Shakur, constantly caught between his poetic side and street drama. Arrested in '94 for assault, jailed in '95 for sexual assault, a case still debated, and later bailed out by Suge Knight. His life was a storm of brilliance, chaos, and courtrooms until his murder in '96. Snoop Dogg, charged with murder in '93 after his bodyguard shot a man. He was eventually acquitted in '96, but the trial hung over his career. His Crip ties and songs like Murder Was the Case didn't help his image. C Murder, part of No Limit Records, convicted in 2002 for the killing of a 16-year-old. Many believe he was unfairly targeted, with shaky evidence and his rap persona used against him. Still fighting for release. Slick Rick, arrested in '91 for attempted murder after shooting at a rival who had threatened his family, served 5 years. Shyne, involved in a 1999 club shooting with Puff Daddy, took the fall, sentenced to 10 years. The list goes on. Mystical, Pimp C, and more. The point is, for rappers, fame didn't protect them. It made the spotlight harsher, the punishment heavier. And then there was the music industry. Labels in the 90s saw money in controversy. The realer you seemed, the more records you sold. Suge Knight built Death Row's empire on that image, and it worked. But it came at a cost. Labels weren't rushing to pull artists away from danger, they leaned into it, because danger sold record. Some people even push conspiracy theories that the industry had a financial interest in rappers staying locked up, though there's no solid evidence for that. What is clear is that the industry often profited off rappers' struggles while doing little to help them survive it. Looking back, the 90s left scars on hip-hop. Tupac's prison stint, Snoop's murder trial, and countless other cases shaped how rap evolved. Some artists, like Snoop, managed to reinvent themselves and build long-lasting careers. Others never escaped. So, if we're being honest, the 90s might have been the toughest era for hip-hop. These rappers were mostly young, black men trying to break into a world that still wasn't ready to fully accept them. They were fighting their environments, their own choices, and a system stacked against them, all at once. That's why so many ended up behind bars. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. See you in the next one.